this Friday, we are going to report some very exciting positive news from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Deputy Counsel Luke Berg is joining me this morning. Good morning, Luke. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh my gosh, thank you for joining me this morning. I saw this. In fact, I'll just share it with you. I didn't tell you this off the air, but on Wednesday, I was down in Madison. I know. Congratulations, Meg. No, I went down to the belly of the beast and listened and sat through a number of hearings that had to do with protecting children and protecting women and girls in Wisconsin. And I'm so happy to hear about this news about the Kettle Moraine School District and what Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has achieved. So I want to let you share it with our listeners, and then we'll have a chat about it.
Yeah, so we just won a lawsuit earlier this week against the Kettle Moraine School District. This is one of these cases involving gender identity transitions at school. So in this case, our client's daughter was experiencing a mental health crisis and for a while thought she was a boy and wanted to transition. But her mom and her dad decided that was not in her best interest. So they communicated that to the school, and the school basically said, sorry, too bad. If you send her back to school, we're going to call her whatever she wants while she's here. It doesn't matter what you parents think is best for her. So they did what I think any parents would do in that situation. They immediately pulled her from the district and then contacted us. And at that point, we got involved and started with a letter, but it eventually led to a lawsuit. And we just won the lawsuit. The court agreed with us, confirmed that this is a serious decision that parents have the right to make on behalf of their children, and that the school district violated parents' constitutional rights by ignoring their decision and disregarding their decision about what's best for their own children. So it's surprising that we need a court to say that, but it's a huge win, and we hope that it will reverberate across the country.
Well, I, for a time, wanted to go to law school, and then when my freshman year in college, I took a business law class, which was really difficult, and I decided, okay, I've had enough. Although the closest then I got to attorneys was my first job out of college. I worked for Westlaw, which is now Westlaw Thompson Reuters, and obviously during the course of the time that I took this class, business law class in college, and then also working for Westlaw, I became very aware of the term setting a precedent. And this is a case, and I think your press release refers to it as a groundbreaking legal victory in parental rights. And that was sort of a repetitive theme during the course of these hearings that I attended down in Madison this past week, that those on the left, for whatever reason, have, well, okay, shall we say lost their minds? Did they ever have minds to begin with? But that they are unwilling to acknowledge that parents have rights and that they supersede what a child might want to do. I mean, I was incredulous. I couldn't believe that Democrats, and these were our legislators, were unwilling to acknowledge that parents have rights over their children. In fact, there were many who testified, whether they were legislators or otherwise, that said that you should always look to children first. And I'm so grateful because I think in this case, this is precedent setting. And I mean, I'd love for you to comment on that, and we can talk about how that will perhaps apply to future cases that come up and maybe legislation here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, this is a nationwide issue. There are over 1,000 school districts that have these policies across the country, and there's a wave of litigation over these policies. There are, by my count, 20 or 22 lawsuits over these policies currently pending in the court systems, and this is the first case that I'm aware of to win in a claim brought by parents, and so it's precedent setting in that sense. There have been a couple other wins in claims brought by teachers because a lot of these policies require teachers to lie to parents about what's happening at school, which is just insane. But it's the first win on a case brought by parents. So we hope that in all the other cases judges will look to the court's decision in this case and rely on its very solid reasoning for protecting parental rights.
So, as a local school district or a board member of a school district, we'll take Wausau as an example. Can they look at this case and can they make policy now based on this case and enforce it here in Wausau?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing stopping school boards and school districts from adopting a pro-parent policy, and it would be in line with everything else that school districts do, right? So the remedy that the court ordered in this case is simply you must get parental consent before teachers will begin treating a child as if they're the opposite sex at school. And one of the things the judge said is, look, a school district couldn't give medication to a student at school without parental consent. We don't let kids play on sports teams without parental consent because of the injury risk. In the same way, you can't facilitate a gender transition, which is a major life change for a child, without parental consent. So it's not out of the norm or ordinary at all for a school to require parental consent for a decision of this magnitude. What is out of the ordinary is school districts excluding parents from this decision, and that's what's anomalous. So yeah, we would encourage school boards to make changes, and that's what we hope. One of the messages from this case is if school districts have a policy to exclude parents from this decision, they are at risk of being sued and losing. And we hope that they would be sued and would lose, because this policy needs to change everywhere.
So let's just say a state legislator or two here in Wisconsin is listening to this program. Could they come up with some legislation that would, have teeth now because of this particular case?
Yes, they could. And in fact, the legislature had a very robust parental rights bill that we supported that included a provision that dealt with this issue directly, that schools must defer to parents about the name and pronouns their children use at school. But unfortunately, Governor Evers vetoed it. So we'll just keep hoping in the future that bill will eventually pass and become the law. I know a number of other states have passed bills addressing this issue. So there is a lot of room for policy changes, both at the local level and at the state level. And there's a lot of room for lawsuits as well if school districts have these policies to hide this from parents.
Would it behoove the legislators that did create this legislation? Would it, I guess, inspire them, or would it be in their best interest to reintroduce the legislation and see if Governor Evers vetoes it again, so that he goes on a record as going against a case like this?
Yeah, that would be great, and I bet we will see it introduced again, because it's an issue that I think unites parents. I think most parents would say, if my child deals with this serious issue, struggles with their gender identity, has questions about who they are, I would want to be involved. Even parents who might be on board with a transition, I still think would want to be involved to help their child. So I just think this is a common sense winning issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. Unfortunately, Evers has made it that, but I would hope the legislature would keep putting that bill in front of his desk so he keeps having to consider it.
Well, and I mean, the good news, too, is that there were other groups that maybe traditionally wouldn't be our allies that, I guess, as an example, that spoke in favor of laws that would protect children in the Wisconsin schools. One such group is Gays Against Groomers. And, I guess I think that with regard to any kind of legislation that protects children, to get Democrats and to get Democrat Governor Tony Evers on record as being against protecting children, I think would be very helpful in the long run for Republicans. Because, despite the fact that, as traumatic as it was for me to be down in Madison and sit through these hearings and listen to a lot of people with purple hair and men wearing dresses and whatever else, I do know that they have a unique subset of the population that at their fingertips the left does when conducting any hearings like this, and I don't believe that it's reflective of the rest of the state. And as you said, I think parents throughout the country would want to exercise practical sense. It used to be called common sense, but practical sense when it comes to this issue, because I think it transcends political parties, and I think parents want to protect their children. Most parents believe that they are the best advocates for their children, and they shouldn't be superseding their parental rights to a government entity like a public school.
Yeah, another aspect of this that you just touched on, I think that's really important is listening to other people's stories. So there are a lot of young people now who are coming forward who transitioned when they were younger, and then years later realized that was a huge mistake, come to deeply regret it, and are telling their stories about how it harmed them. Our client's daughter, actually, in the Kettle Moraine case, is another example of that. So she for a time thought she was a boy and wanted to transition, and her mom said no. And as you can imagine, that created quite a bit of tension between them at the time. But after her mother pulled her out of the school district, pulled her out of a healthcare environment that was, quote unquote, affirming that she was a boy, pulled her out of social media, just within a few weeks, she realized that her mother was right, that this was not really who she was, and that her belief that she was a boy was driven by other underlying issues that she needed to deal with. And she since has, and now she's in a very healthy, happy place, very confident in who she is. And I just think that illustrates why it's so important that parents be involved in this decision. School district administrators, healthcare providers do not know and love a child the way that a parent does. And parents in the main are going to want what's best for their kids, are going to be most zealous in advocating for them, and are going to say no out of love and to protect them and to just make sure that they really know what they're getting into before they make such a major life change. So I think the best way to help kids who deal with this, and this is a real issue that kids deal with, and we should care deeply about those who struggle with it, is to involve their parents who love and know them best.
So is this young woman, is she still in high school or has she graduated?
Yeah, she's still in high school.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I look forward to perhaps, and we'll chat about this off air, but I would actually love to have a conversation with her mom, or even both of them together. I think that would be a very interesting conversation. So, well, Luke Berg, thank you for joining me this morning. I sincerely appreciate you and all your efforts on behalf of, again, standing up for parents' rights and really ultimately looking out for what's best for Wisconsin children. So I appreciate it. will-law.org is their website. Thanks again for joining me. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks. We'll talk again soon.